Alright, and welcome to the first video in your ACP review. On this one, we're going to talk about fractional distance. So find the coordinates of the point 2/3 of the way from point A to point B. Now notice, in most time when we're talking about coordinate geometry problems, the order does not matter in which you use in the formula, but in this case it does. So notice it says, hey, we are going from point A to point B. And so we need to label our A as our x1 and y1, and our B as x2 and y2. For instance, if this is said from point B to A, it had flip-flopped them, well, you would need to flip-flop your x1, y1 and your x2, y2. Okay, so we need to know the formula. And this is one of the few formulas that's not on your formula charts. You're going to have to memorize this one. And so for our fractional distance, it is x1 plus k, our fractional distance, times x2 minus x1, comma. And then you repeat this exact same pattern, but just with your y values. So we're going to have y1 plus k, parentheses, y2 minus y1. Now, I know this looks like a lot at first, but once you get used to this, it's actually pretty easy. Okay, let's plug in everything from left to right. I know that my x1 value is 2 plus my k value, my fraction, 2/3 of the way, from x2, that's 5 minus 2, close parentheses. And for y1, I know that my y1 value is -7 plus my k value is still 2/3, parentheses. And here my y2 is -10 minus y1, -7. And one of the things for you to remember is that it's always going to be whatever number you write first will always be the number you write last. Whatever number you write first is the number you write last. Hopefully that'll start to help you memorize this formula. Okay, from here we follow our order of operations. So we do what's inside the parentheses first. By the way, two negatives make a positive over there on the right. And so I can write 2 plus 2 over 3, parentheses, 5 minus 2 is 3, comma. Here I have -7 plus 2/3 times -10 plus 7 would be -3. Okay. Now, whenever it comes to multiplying fractions, you could use your calculator or you could do this by hand, but 2/3 times 3 is really, I'm going to multiply the 3 by the number on top. And so now I'd have something like 2 plus 3 times 2 is 6 over 3. But ask yourself, well, hey, what is 6 divided by 3? I'm going to say, hey, that's really saying 2 plus 2, comma. Over here we have -7, and 2/3 times -3, just following the same pattern we did on the left, actually becomes -2. Okay. Now I know that's kind of hard to see, so let's just go ahead and add it, and I'll put my final answer right up here. I know that 2 plus 2 is 4, so 4, comma, and -7 minus 2 will actually be -9. Okay? And so that is the point that is 2/3 of the distance from point A to B. It's the point 4, comma, -9. All right, let's move on to example 2. Finish up your notes here. Pause the video, finish your notes. Now we'll move on to example 2. Okay, here we have example 2. We want to find the coordinates of the point 3/4 of the way from point B to A. So the first thing you want to do when given a graph as your starting point is you want to label those points. So I know that B is over here at 2, 1, and I know that my A is over here at -4, -2. All right. Now from there, let me kind of switch colors here. Oh, I guess I can't do that with that guy in the way. Okay. Anyways, notice how it says from point B. Ooh, don't want that. Notice how it says from point B to A. Sorry guys, new interface here. Come on, dude. No. Okay, there we go. From point B to A. Sorry about that, y'all. Anyways, from point B to A, notice I'm going to start with B, which is going to be my x1, y1, and my A value, which will be x2, y2. And it's really important that you start with the very first point. If we're going from B to A, then point B has to be x1, y1. Okay, let's go ahead and write out our formula. We know that our formula is going to be x1 plus k, parentheses, x2 minus x1, okay, comma. And then over here we have the similar thing. We have the y1 plus k, parentheses. And I guess I'll fill that in a little bit. You know what, here. I'll start writing this right here where it's nice and long, and then we'll come back and finish the problem. Okay, so what's our x1 value? x1 is going to be 2 plus, well, I know that we're looking for the point that is 3/4 of the way from our x2 value, negative 4 minus our x1 value, 2, close parentheses. And here, notice that what I can do is I can go ahead and start simplifying this. I know that I have, well, you know, let's write out our y side first. So for our y side, we have our y1 value, 1 plus our scale factor, 3/4, parentheses, and we have our y2 value, which will be negative 2 minus y1, which is 1. Okay, so let's start working this out. We know inside the parentheses I got negative 6, okay, times still that 3/4 and then plus the 2, comma. Here I've got that negative 2 minus 1, which is negative 3, times 3/4 plus 1. Now these fractions are a little bit trickier, so let's do it like this. Let's write this as negative 6/1. And remember, the way that you multiply fractions is doing top times top and bottom times bottom. So I'll come back over here and I'll write 2, and a positive times a negative is a negative, and 3 times 6 is 18, over 4 times 1 is 4, comma. Over here, I have 1. Once again, a positive times negative is a negative. And this is going to be really written as negative 3/1. And 3 times negative 3, well, I'm sorry, 3 times 3 will be 9. We already took care of that negative. And 4 times 1 will be 4. Now, if you have a calculator, it's pretty easy to do this part. Typically, I don't ask that you do these by hand. But, you know, what if you're at home? Like, what in the world would you do? Well, when you have a whole number, pretty easy. I just say, hey, I want this 2/1 to have a 4 on the bottom. So I just say 1 times 4, and if I multiply the bottom by 4, I'll multiply the top by 4. 4 times 2 is 8, over 4 times 1 is 4, minus 18/4, comma. Similarly, this is really like saying 1/1, and I want to change this 1 into a 4. So I'll multiply the top and bottom by 4/4. And 4 times 1 is 4, and 4 times 1 is 4, minus 9/4. And now that I have a common denominator, I can just go ahead and combine these. 8 minus 18 will give me negative 10/4, comma. 4 minus 9 is going to be negative 5/4. And I notice I can reduce this one. 10 and 4 can both be divided by 2. So I write negative 5/2, comma, negative 5/4. Okay, you know, that's kind of a tricky point, but I know that 5/2 is 2.5, so it's like going to the left 2.5, and negative 5/4 is really negative 1.25, and so you would expect that point to be right about there. And now you can see the point and how it's kind of 4/5. It's 4/5 of the distance from B to A. All right, y'all. I hope this is helpful, and I'll catch y'all in our next video.